Hello, everyone. Welcome back to OpenLine, talking about human trafficking. And as we went to break, our guest is Margie Quin with End Slavery Tennessee. As we went to break, I said we're going to come back and talk about the role big tech plays. Should there be more oversight, more regulation, that kind of thing? You said things have gotten worse with the onset of certain social media. So what do you think? I mean, you kind of mentioned about social media, the role it plays in human trafficking, which is disturbing. What do we need to be thinking about? What do we need to be doing?
So we battled big tech for a number of years. We battled Backpage.com. They were the #1 purveyor of sex advertising in the United States back in the 2014, 2015, 2016. And it required the United States Congress to make changes in the Communications Decency Act 230, CDA 230, and carve out some exceptions for internet providers who are producing content or facilitating the production of content that is a crime, that is trafficking, that shows rape of a child. I know there are a lot of allies and advocates who are really battling Pornhub right now, which is sort of taken over where Backpage left off, Canadian company. Our laws tend to protect commerce, and so and they don't want to stifle commerce, but Backpage didn't need to be making tens of millions of dollars off the backs of 12-year-olds. And so it took us 5 or 6 years to get enough sort of momentum going so that we could battle big tech. And as you can imagine, big tech does not want any restrictions on the internet, any restrictions on commerce, any restrictions that might stifle innovation. But it's for the good of our society and the good of the community, we have to put some regulations in order to be able to monitor crime that's occurring over the internet. And so it's a delicate balance. And I can see both sides of it, but I was so immersed in what was happening on the internet. And in fact, our legislature in 2013 passed a law in order to hold internet companies criminally liable for content they produced. Backpage filed an immediate injunction on our law. There were 3 states that tried it. I wrote the affidavit on behalf of our state in federal court, and we did not prevail. And the federal judge cited CDA 230 as the protection for these internet companies. And so we finally got some movement on that a couple of years ago with a compromise bill in the United States Congress that virtually shut down Backpage. But now we're wrestling with a couple of other big internet providers who are doing something very, very similar.
Wow. And so you think there will be some legislation here soon that's going to really go after this kind of thing?
I hope so. Big tech throws around a lot of money. And so, you're battling the money that big tech throws around to legislators, House representatives and senators. And again, it is a delicate balance. But we've got to be smart about it, and we've got to enact some regulations to protect children and victims on the internet.
And what about regulation? So you mentioned some of these more explicit sites, and that makes sense. Okay, there's a problem there. But you also mentioned before Facebook. And what regulation would you like to see? What regulation may be in the works when it comes to something like Facebook that is not one of those more explicit sites?
Yeah, I think that's much tougher. And I will tell you that I think as much work needs to be done at home as needs to be done at the legislature. So parents have got to educate themselves and say no to children with regards to technology and phones. The earlier you hand a kid sort of unlimited use of technology, the more likely it is they're going to see content that you do not want them to see. They're going to meet somebody you do not want them to meet. And I've said it 1,000 times. If you are not talking to your child as a parent, somebody else will, and you will not like what they tell them. And so we've got to do a better job at home, I think, of talking to our kids, understanding technology and the role that it plays. There are all kinds of great apps on either Android devices or Apple devices that will help you monitor the content on your child's phone, help you determine what apps they can have, how long they can spend on those apps. There's even some great software that you can put on a kid's phone that will sort of monitor. You can put keywords and phrases in that will help you monitor kind of what's happening with your kid. So if you have a child that suffers with depression or suicidal ideation, you may want to put some keywords in that child's phone through this special software that will notify you if the child is talking about or searching for things along that line. And so I would encourage parents to do the research. I have a 15-and-a-half-year-old. Her phone's fairly locked down still. And I control what apps she has on her phone and how long she can spend on them. And she doesn't like it, but she also knows her mother's just seeing too much. And so, I think it's not an easy conversation to have with your kid, and they may not like you for it, but that's the best way you can protect them. If you wouldn't let them go play out here on I-65 in rush hour traffic, don't let them play on the internet.
That's fascinating. And that is something that so many parents are grappling with. And I think parents are like, I trust my kid. I don't want to invade his or her privacy. I'm going to give them this phone and make them promise not to do this or that. But you're saying it needs to be more than that. And it's okay to really have, I guess, can you give us a cautionary tale in what you've seen? Are there some examples of, talking to parents here, what do they need to do and what is at stake?
Yeah, so we had a trafficking case at TBI that it was a Facebook lured case, and I won't tell you where it was, but it was a juvenile, and she started talking to somebody on Facebook, and they talked for some weeks, and they decided to meet, and they met, and within 36 hours she was on the internet, and he had drugged her, and she was trafficked.
Wow.
And so I had a situation at TBI where we had a child who we thought she was talking to a sex offender in another state. She was about 12. We thought he was 35. It actually turns out that she was talking to and she thought she was in a romantic relationship with a boy who was 18, and it actually turned out to be another 12-year-old girl. I mean, you just don't know who you're talking to on the internet. You just don't know. And so, and kids today, I think, are so empowered, and that's so great in so many ways, but they're empowered to the point that they think they know everything and that they can handle every situation. And my daughter says that, I can handle it. I can handle it. The point is, I don't want her to have to handle it. There's some things that at that age, at 10 years old, at 12 years old, she shouldn't be seeing. These are too mature subject matters for her to see. And I think you got to keep your kids off social media.
Fascinating.
As long as you can.
Keep them off as long as you can. And then not be afraid to check up on them, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's not an invasion of their privacy. It's an appropriate thing to do.
It's not child abuse. It's not invasion of their privacy. They're not going to like you for it, and that's okay. You'd rather them be mad and they're safe than doing a bunch of stuff that you don't know about. And if you set those parameters early, it's hard to come in once you've given free rein and then lock somebody down. But if you set those parameters early, then it becomes it's what's expected, And again, my kid thinks she's the most abused child on the planet because she lives with such strict guidelines. But
which means many other kids around her don't live with those guidelines. I guess that's what they tell you. I feel like that's what my kids would tell me. So it's okay.
Right. And I say I'm not Sally's parent. It's not that I don't care what happens to Sally. It's that I'm not her parent. And because it's Sally doesn't have to do it, and okay, good for Sally. I'm not Sally's parent. And our parents, my parents, I'm in my mid-50s, my parents thought nothing of telling me no. I heard no far more than I heard yes. And I think sometimes today's parents think they have to accommodate, kids and everything they want. And if they're somehow going to keep their kids behind, if their kids aren't, keeping up with everybody else, I'm fairly unapologetic about it. It is what it is.
Fascinating. And you're somebody who would know. So, all right, that's fascinating. All of that's very interesting. All right, we have to take a break. We'll come back, continue our discussion. Be back right after this.